Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us, everyone. We are proud to present our next speaker, Michael Palermo with Here Technologies. Please give him a warm welcome.
Thank you, everyone. As mentioned, Michael Palermo with Here Technologies. First question I always ask is, how many of you actually have heard of Here and know who we are? It's pretty impressive, at least maybe 15, 20%. That's an increase. So maybe you haven't known us for our name now, but you probably will know who we are from who we used to be. So I just wanted to let you know the agenda is very brief. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about Here, and then we're going to do a demo. So we do location services. If you need map images and an application, we do that. You need routing, we do that. If you needed to find out and discover all sorts of points of interest or places within a certain area, we do that. We do geocoding, reverse geocoding, all things location services related. Initially started as NavTech and was the first to bring this to the web, and then ultimately bought out by Nokia, and now we are Here. So you probably have heard at least of one of those before. So without further ado, I'd like to get into a demo, because most of this is a demo how to build a chatbot that's location aware. So I'm going to get into that. Let me post this here. And the first thing I want to mention is that on Twitter, @Palermo4, I have a pinned tweet down below that has all the resources for this. So tutorials you can follow along, a video that you can watch, plus the first link after the session details is a link that you can sign up for a free account, and you're also eligible for our Nintendo Switch giveaway today. And our booth is just right around the corner here in the middle. Just hang to your left and you'll see our booth right there. Also, each one of the seats has one of those handouts that if you use the QR code, that also is the way to register for a free account, and you'll be also in the drawing for that Nintendo Switch. I'm going to switch over to this area. Now, where I'm at right now is Amazon Lex. So I signed in with my AWS developer account, and I have an option to create a new chatbot. Now, I am going to click on Create, and I just want to let you know that as I look at what's available to me here, it's kind of giving a picturesque view. What is a chatbot? It's something that enables you to have a conversation via text or voice without having to have a human involved right then and there. So this is giving that example. I'm sure you've had it before. Maybe it's a doctor's appointment or a hair appointment or something, and the day before it says, you have an appointment tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Reply yes if you can make it, or no if you can't. That's an example of a chatbot. Or sometimes if you're on the phone and you're listening, press 1 for this, or just tell me who you want to talk to. That's another example of a chatbot. That's using voice. Now, because of the limited time that I have, I'm not actually going to create everything and type everything, because that'll take longer than what I had here. So what I'm going to do instead is go back to the previous screen that I was in, just a moment. And I'm going to click on one called TrekBot. Let me give you the scenario of what TrekBot is all about. I have to believe at an AWS conference that people are familiar with Star Trek. And so I'd like to also believe that you'd be able to address a couple things, such as, if you think of the bridge, whether it's old Star Trek Next Generation, what are some of the roles on the bridge? Can any of you just shout out one? A role on the bridge. Captain, I hear. Any others? Yes, science officer, or maybe first officer. See, there's communications. There's also perhaps weapons or security. So here is the scenario. Via this chatbot, members of the bridge by role have landed on Earth, and we are going to locate and track them because they have GPS location devices on them. Now, you can translate that in your mind to literal GPS aware devices. It could be people tracking by their phone, it could be IoT devices, whatever, but that's the scenario. This particular chatbot, which is called TrekBot, only has what's called one intent in it. And if you look at that intent at the top over here, it's called get area by role. That means I want to hear the English name of where they're at, even though what they're going to communicate to us is just a GPS coordinate. I want to know the English name for it. So get that area by their role. So if I ask, where the captain is, or where weapons is, or where the comms person is, I should be able to get a friendly name of where they're at in the world. So that's the gist of this location-aware chatbot. Now, in order to make a good conversational experience, you need to start constructing how you would ask that question. And you've even heard me say it a couple times, like, where is the captain? Or locate security. Those kind of things. Well, you'll notice here that there's something called sample utterances. This is things that will invoke the chatbot. So the very first one I have here is called where. Just where. If someone just types the word where, that's enough to invoke something. But if I scroll down, you'll see that if they don't provide the role, I now ask the question, who? So if they put where, well who? Where who? Oh, captain. You see what I'm saying? So it's kind of a way to construct some of that conversation. Or if you just want to do it all at the same time, you could say, where role? Where captain? Or where is captain? Now, these things that are highlighted in green and blue are called slots. Now, if you're a developer, just think of it this way. This is the simplest way to look at it. Get area by role is the name of this intent, but it kind of looks like a function. And role and where kind of look like parameters going into that function. So what are the input parameters going into this conversational dialogue? That's what you're capturing here. And I'm just going to give you an example. So by the way, what are some other ways that you could call a captain? What could you say? Anybody? Cap? Lord? I mean, there's a number of ways you could. So if you make it really strict, you have to kind of second guess. How would everybody refer or interpret that? So I'm just going to let you see what the role type looks like. And as we go down, you'll see that for captain, I have chief, leader, lord, cap, boss. For first, which would be like your first officer, I have to go through every single implementation of first. 1ST, FIRST, and I have to create every single way that I can think of. So this is the way you create synonyms for all the language things that you're trying to identify these roles. Same with security. I got weapons or defense, and then communication, you might say comms. They might type it different ways. So you have to have all these variations in here just for the roles that are here. Now, what are other ways that you could say where? Because believe me, end users will think of something. They will not use where. They will, but they'll use something else. So I'm just going to show you what some of those variations could be. It could be find, seek, locate. You might get a thesaurus out at this point, and just make sure you're covered. Because, again, you have to track them all. But whatever is the very first value that you see on the left side, look at that as like the key value. So no matter what they say, the key value is where. That's important. Same as the other thing that we looked at. No matter how they refer to a captain, captain is the key value. You with me on that? Okay. So now that I have that, I want to give you an example of how this looks without implementing any business logic. And the reason why I know no business logic is being used right now is because down below it says return parameters to client, which means just regurgitate what they've been doing and just show it right here in this test client. And I'm gonna show that to you right here with this test client. So, for example, if I want to just type in where and hit enter, it says who. That makes sense. Where who? Oh, now I could just type like captain or cap and hit enter, and it says, okay, so here's that value that comes back. It says, okay, you just called the intent called get area by role. You have two values, one called captain. Even though I typed cap, it returned captain because it resolved it for me. And then it says your where is where. Let me try another one. Locate weapons. See, in one line now, because I satisfied all the required parameters, it says, okay, you passed in security, even though I typed weapons, and your where is where, even though I typed locate. Because keep in mind, in order to do if logic in code, you don't want to do all sorts of if statements on every variety of the word where. You just want where, because that's how you're going to do your logic. You just want captain, because that's how you want to do. You don't want to do all sorts of weird if statements or case statements. So with that stated, let's start talking about what people might do with chatbots, sadly, like I love you, because people get lonely. Now, the response here is I'm so confused. That's because I created that in my error handling. You'll see there's an error handling tab. I'll show it to you in a second. But if I say, hey, what is your name? You know, it's definitely, it's having issues because it's looking at the definitions of I understand where, I understand role. Anything that goes beyond that, I am confused. And if I keep going with it, like I, really adore you, and then I just keep going, talk to me. Now I have it built in. 3 strikes, you're out, and I created that message. Gotta go. Like, you're confusing me so much, I got other things to do. So that's all part of Amazon Lex. But what if now I want to take those values and actually get real data based on GPS coordinates? What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over and say, I want this to be fulfilled by a Lambda function. So instead of just giving me these values back, why don't we use a function that can take care of that? And I have one that's already built called Lex Wherebot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this intent. I'm also going to publish it, or I'm sorry, build it. So I'll let that build, and while it's building, I'm going to show you what this Lambda function code looks like. As I scroll here, what I want to be able to do is first showcase for you this function that's called getTrackablePersonLocation. So a name comes in. If you'll notice in this switch, captain, first, communication, whoops, let me X that out so I can see more, and security. See, if I don't want every variation of captain here, I just want captain. That's it, right? So I can get those. Now, of course, I've hard-coded their locations by just putting in GPS coordinates in here. But again, it's not hard for you to imagine. This could be the result of making a call because you're using perhaps our positioning API or something that's actually getting the location address of something out there in the world somewhere. So that's what that is simulating. Down below, though, is where on line 57, I'm calling our reverse geocoder that says, giving you these GPS coordinates, and I'm just going to tell you in English what it's doing. Can you tell me what that area is? Like, is it like the greater Phoenix area, or is it Costa Rica? Don't give me an address. Just give me what the general area is there. Like, okay. So that's what that does. Now, when this Lambda gets executed, it returns that result set back to the LexBot engine for further processing. So I'm going to switch back over to Amazon Lex. It says our build is complete. So now I'm going to say locate number 1. Costa Rica. It's taking it from those GPS coordinates from that Lambda. Or I could say seek comms. That would be in Seattle. And so forth. I mean, all these different ways. And when you set up your beginning of your command, so to speak, with something like where, but have all these synonyms for all the different ways it could be asked, That's what enables you to do this kind of logic, but still send one value over to the Lambda for conditional processing. So that's a nice little tip trick. The other thing that I want to talk to you about with regard to creating location-aware chatbots is you'll notice even the example that Amazon selected for like, oh, if you're going to create an intent with all these different slot values, notice here that they have what city, location, and then your slot type. If I scroll down for slot type and I start to look at some of their built-in ones, you're going to notice that they have like Amazon AT city. And then I'll scroll to Amazon DE city, which is for Germany. And then European city. And then if I keep going down, there's Amazon US city. So, by the way, prior to working for Here Technologies, I was on the Alexa team with Amazon. And this setup here of slots and intents is very similar to the Alexa stuff. And what's really intriguing here is that when people say this, like, what if I want something that's not a US city? What if they're going to give me a global city? What do you do for a global city? Here's the answer to that. If you're traveling abroad, if I'm actually in Italy, which I've been there recently, and if you want to go to Rome, you don't say Rome, you say Roma. Because where are you from? If you're speaking that language in that area, that's what it means. But if I'm in the US, that city is called Rome. Does that make sense? So what this is really saying is, if you're in the US, it's not just US cities, it's how the US would say any city in the world. How would Germans say any city in the world? Does that make sense? Number one issue people have, I get it because when I first saw it, I got confused by it. Like, I want global city. That's what everyone thinks, but you do have global cities. If I were to say Paris, if I were going to say anything like that, it would show up. Granted, you have to understand that sometimes there is cities that we think are global that actually are also in the US as well. So we return a list of all cities that will comply, and of course, whatever that happens to be, you'll have to go through and make sure it's in the right spot. But I just want to give you that little tip trick on how to do that there. Before I do anything else, I just want to say, is there any other questions? Or any questions you might have, please. Yeah, so the question that was asked is, how specific can it get when you are doing, like, let's say a reverse geocoder with the coordinates? You can get it down to the actual address of that location. Great question. That's correct. Yes, and of course, then there's also this factor of perhaps based on satellites and stuff, maybe the ranges might be a little increased, so it'll give you as best as it can based on all the factors that are coming in. Just a second. Okay, so that is the conclusion of this particular session. I would like to say, if you're interested in diving in even more, once again, any of those handouts that you have, please know that that QR code will not only set you up with a free account, but you'll also be enrolled for a Nintendo Switch giveaway. And please come talk to us at our booth. It's right here in the middle, just over here on the left side, just as you turn. Thank you so much.